Alrighty. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Hello, welcome back. The second layer. We're back, we're here. I'm ready to go. The topics from here on out start to get a lot darker, a lot deeper. So grab your type 4 rations and grab your blobfish, buddy. And let's descend. Relevant information. Entry 1. 2000 year cycle. So we're gonna start off with Bondrewd. Okay, the Sovereign of Dawn, the novel. This guy, he's mentioned on passing by Ozen as an out-and-out scoundrel, and we get glimpses of him throughout the series that show us he's focused on the Abyss as a subject to study and values the knowledge and the bitter work it takes to gain it. This guy, he's pretty much just a 4D chess player, essentially. A multi-level thinker with plans that would rival Ozymandias from Watchmen, if any of you guys have watched that or are aware of him. He talks almost prophetically of the Abyss and its nature, which makes him almost captivating to listen to. He's a top researcher, passionate about the Abyss, so much so that he would match its hostility and start experimenting on people, as well as selling drugs, relics, and information to other countries to keep the cycle going. Bondrewd would sacrifice anyone and anything in the furtherment of his knowledge, including himself, as the sacrifice he used to obtain his white whistle was himself. Only made possible through Zoaholic, though, a relic capable of conscious swapping. You see, Bondrewd and perhaps all white whistles know something about the 2000 year cycle that we just don't. And in Bondrewd's mind, any sacrifices needed to understand that are undoubtedly worth it. Within the depth's 5th layer, Bondrewd would do the unthinkable and establish an operating base built within the ancient sacrificial site named Edofront. With the help of a stolen relic, Zoaholic, he quickly gained followers and even forcibly recruited raiders to his new group, creating an elite tier of black whistles, the Umberheads. Slowly but suddenly, advancements were made to Orth, and with it, the city's knowledge of the Abyss and its workings, the curse, and how it affects the people in the deeper layers. This is done with heinous acts, all with the intention of saving others with any of the knowledge gained. Eventually, taking orphan children from other countries and using them, manipulating them by saying they will be the reason for advancement within the Abyss. Created by Bondrewd himself, these children were put into an elevator-like relic, one that is capable of pushing the curse to one side, forcing one person to experience the 6 layers curse for both. Now, these experiments with the elevator, I think, might have been in the hopes of Juso-related success, as the newest chapters confirm that Menya and all of these children of change are closer to Juso than anything, and it would kind of make sense if we think about it. Bondrewd is trying to create a Juso body for him to go into, so he's able to go down into the bottom of the Abyss and then come back up whenever he wants, right? And he came across the blessing, and figuring out how that works and having a successful test from that, he's able to be like, okay, well, this is what I need to do to gain a blessed body, and that being easier than obtaining a Juso body was probably his plan. Bondrewd is equipped with weapons that go toe-to-toe with the Abyss itself. Sporagamos, what is referred to as the Essence Guiding Light, is just as powerful, if not the same as Reg's Incinerator. Needles, called Shakers, that carry the 5th layer's curse. A full-on creature is used as a grappling hook and a cage for enemies. His helmet contains Gongwei, which is a purple beam of light that can home in on enemy weak points. And of course his backpack that holds the cartridges that he needs to eliminate the effects of the curse completely. But cartridges are another horrible thing that Bondrewd has created, all in a nice and tight suitcase for easy portability. Essentially, these cartridges just keep the soul, the brain, and any vital organs needed to qualify as human to receive the curse instead of Bondrewd. Drugs are then implemented to manipulate the child's emotions for a more effective curse repellent, but in a nutshell, it's a meat shield for Bondrewd, for the curse. And even though Bondrewd's morals are basically non-existent, he does seem to love and genuinely care about the children he takes in, though, as he knows all of their names and once dreams of these now dead children. Whether this is actually love and just his twisted way of showing it, since he's like going insane, or if it's all just a fabrication is still debated to this day. It can't be fabrication though, because that love needs to be equal for Pruchka and for Bondrewd for the blessing to occur. In a follow-up fan Q&A, it was confirmed that Bondrewd continues its experiments with children even after Riko gang leave, which is just diabolical. This is crazy. But Bondrewd has one artifact that is so valuable that Riko gang and Bondrewd supposedly came to a compromise after the huge final fight to just not destroy it. And this relic is none other than Zoaholic. Zoaholic stated in the relic guide, in the relic guidebook, that once someone touches the soul slave machine, their soul, body, and mind is forever bound to the user, dividing in this instance Bondrewd's consciousness between his umber hands. Any person who couldn't be successfully bound to Zoaholic are now walking zombies in the back rooms of Idofront. Its temptation is so alluring, in fact, that this artifact was originally found by an animal controlling insects that it called food. Officially lost from Earth 15 years ago, it somehow found its way down to Idofront. It has a pink and purple vulva-shaped body that closes up when it's in sleep mode. I say it like this because the special grade relic is an example of an organic relic, and we will get into that later on down in the Iceberg. We see that the artifact does work though when one of Bondrewd's Umbra hands run up to him and down to the Deep Soul and takes off his helmet, and he switches helmets with him, and then bada bing, bada boom, Big Daddy Bondrewd come through, and he's back. He's back. But with it, out goes his sanity, as the laws of diminishing returns in the Abyss is a real one, and it does not discriminate. Okay guys, this is where things start getting good. We start getting into necessary stuff needed to go down further into the Abyss, and this is why I did it this way. People who don't know, they get it real fast, the information. People who know, skip until you don't see relevant information. But we're going to be talking about the blessing. And the blessing is a very, very niche mechanic to the Abyss and tied to the curse. It's very mysterious and not widely known. The few things that are known about it though, is that there seems to be a need of a strong sense of love between the two, and that one of you must be willing to fully take on the curse. If the curse bearer happens to endure the graphic transformation, the protected one will be changed, and Bondrewd referred to this as the blessing. Once again, perfectly juxtaposing life and death inside the Abyss. But the only couple examples we have of the blessing is Nanachi's blessed form and Bondrewd's blessed form, both of which receive fur and animalistic traits, but whether or not the curse, like the conscious seeing effect, is tied to the blessing, or if it's just in Nanachi's case, isn't really known either, as well as the speculation of change toward your strongest desire. But I'm not really on the fence about it. I'm kind of just, I don't really think it is, because Arubaru was more of a product of a relic, and a relic gone bad at that. Alright, entry 1, 2,000 year cycle. So the 2,000 year cycle is something that is straight up confirmed throughout the series at this point. Throughout the adaptations, through the chants of Bondrewd's glorious scientific rumble, he exclaims that the preparations for stepping into the next 2,000 years is complete. Is this because he figured out the mechanics of the blessing fully? You know, that's what he's saying? Or maybe he's found a way for Zoaholic to be more effective, or he found a different relic that's more effective, or maybe he finally figured out Juso, or it's odd. It's very odd. But these relics have themes, okay? Like Zoaholic, being brought back somehow. The soul. Whether these other relics act as predecessors for more effective machines isn't really known, but for example, the curse repelling vessel, it could be just a prototype for, say, something like Zoaholic, right? As the box is far from perfect, but Zoaholic being an upgrade to that software, you could call it. There are also burial towers located in the depths of the first layer with skeletons in prayer. Now, these skeletons are dated to be from 2,000 years ago. Strange? Yes. But even stranger, more praying skeletons from 4,000 years ago were found right beneath that. Cave raiders, determined to get some kind of truth to this mystery, dug deeper and uncovered more mysteries. Around 1,000 more praying skeletons were found, and these confirmed to be from 6,000 years ago. Now, whether these praying skeleton souls left and into the bottom of the Abyss, or they were praying for a blessing, or praying for help of the god in the Abyss, isn't known. It's just speculation because they are in prayer position. There's a lot we can guess about these guys, okay? I mean, there's even an example of a single skeleton being found underneath a rock in the beginning of the series where Riko finds a skeleton. But what if there's multiple burial shrines throughout different layers? That would be cause to think a new civilization is made in every layer, and perhaps destroyed and forgotten by the next, only to be found again, every 2,000 years, or the 2,000-year cycle when it's made. The theory that I really like is that an advanced ancient civilization were the first colonizers, and that they worship a monster or like a giant baby god eldritch abomination thing on the bottom, like a society built up around the abyss and the deity, essentially, right? Like the very first people that went there. In my head, this makes the most sense because of all like the ancient shapes in the abyss, such as eggs being the form of wish fulfillment, and even the abyssal religion itself that's built up around it. These shapes seem to hold key information that we just can't grasp yet. How much will people cling to something they can't comprehend? We'll get into the shapes deeper down, but I promise it gets very, very, very interesting. There are also theories of the abyss involving time travel and the mechanics of using time as the curse, and at the end it's all just a giant loop. In my opinion, I really hate that theory. I think it's kind of lazy. I think if they went down and then they went back up and then they forgot everything and then everything just went in a giant loop, it's too simple. It's not something I would expect from Tsukushi, and I really am like going off the deep end here. I'm trying not to, because I know that that's where your expectations get shot down from, but I go into the newest chapter like, it's just gonna be another chapter of them cooking or whatever, and then it's like the whole like bombshell of, chapter 64 and 65, I was like, holy crap, man, it's getting serious, it's getting real, we're getting deep in here. But yeah. Okay, so next we're gonna be talking about the abyssal time dilation, and this is just a reference to the very real time dilation that occurs while in the depths of the abyss. For really good reference and a really good summary, chapter 17, page 13, Ozen states, quote, "Your sense of time will go mad. It's particularly severe from the 5th layer onwards. Once I intended to only spend a couple weeks down there, and when I returned to the surface, a few months had passed instead." And quote, "The problem is that we can't even approximate to what extent that madness would manifest itself on the 6th and 7th layers. Whether or not this truly makes one mad is yet to be fully observed, but it can be heavily argued that it does, with people like Bondrewd and Wazukan, who have great intentions and with the urge of the abyss calling to turn to more morally gray or outright evil plans to achieve these desires. Another example of this is the explanation given from Nanachi of why months worth of funeral name tags and eternal fortunes would be falling down into the 6th layer. I have to ask one thing, totally off script. Is that just copium though? Like, Riko and Rig are never gonna go back to Orth, right? They knew that from the start. So I would think that it's kind of like, yeah, they might be dead, Ozen even says that in the very beginning of their journey, like, hey, if you don't want the people up there to miss you, to die missing you, then don't go down, That's the whole point of the abyssal time dilation, but it's very important, very key to know, and we're gonna be moving on to the next one here. And of course, let's dive into the curse. We need to talk about this. I was actually really surprised that I hadn't talked about this in depth before, but the curse is a series of symptoms that all living things that enter the abyss have when ascending back up past a 10-meter threshold. These curses stack on one another and grow exponentially worse throughout the depths of the abyss. The only calm to this storm being ascending up away from the central shaft, as the curse is more prominent in the center as opposed to like the corners. Such places include Seeker Camp in the 2nd layer's inverted forest, as well as Nanachi's hideout tucked away in the 4th layer's Goblet of Giants. Now, all predators of the abyss have an ability to see this force field, such as the Orbed Piercer and the Crimson Splitjaw, and with it the ability to ascend and descend freely. And we can see this in the Crimson Splitjaw in the beginning of the show. They are naturally found in the 3rd layer, but obviously he's made his way up to the 1st to eat or whatever he was doing up there. But the citizens of Orth and its delvers appropriately refer to the curse as the Strains of Ascension. This presence in the Abyss, it's unavoidable. And as explained by Nanachi, this force field, it's the very blood of the Abyss. It envelops us and moves as we move, flowing like energy that surrounds us. Breathing and even thinking is enough to change its flow. But the catalyst for the curse is when essential organs are shoved through the threshold, and that's when you'll be greeted with the strains. We get to the really cool world building here. As for layer 1, ascending through the minimum 10-meter safety threshold will cause nausea and mild dizziness, which is, nothing too bad, huh? The second layer's afflictions are severe nausea, headaches, and numbness of the extremities. Now, the third layer's curse will have all previously mentioned symptoms along with the third layer's specific curse. Ascending up here will cause vertigo, visual and auditory hallucinations, as well as problems with equilibrium. Layer 4 will give us intense body pain, internal hemorrhaging, and bleeding from every single orifice. And 5th layer strains include complete ego death, confusion, and self-harm. And within the 6th layer's curse will cause the most mysterious effect, loss of humanity. We see that this loss of humanity is a lot more clearly translated to the transformation into Narahate, commonly known as hollows, people who have taken the burden of the 6 layers curse and transformed because of it. Seen as a melancholy scar for cave raiders and their now husk of a comrade, it's said other delvers will put them out of their misery and tell their families they died from like an animal or something rather than telling them the truth. And more recently, we've received information about the 7th layer and its curse, as Sarajo states that there was indeed a single account of its effects, but that in the middle of translating it, it was destroyed or it's gone missing somehow, but that the mainstream narrative that Orth and perhaps all white whistles themselves push is that the 7th layer's curse is absolute death and nothing else. But we are getting very close to figuring out what that 7th layer's curse is, and I for one am very excited. So we're back to relevant information. For entry 3, Riko and Lyza are inside Reg. So the first thing we need to talk about is the birthday death disease. Once thought to be a fairy tale, and now thought to be the reason for all the praying skeletons that are found in the burial sites that we talked about, and perhaps Orth's evacuation at the end of season 1, I think it is. The birthday death disease is a sickness one receives near their birthday, leaving them dead at day's end though. Kiyu being our only physical example of any of the symptoms received, these seem to just be bedridden, fever, and then just death. That is assuming that the twins did not die by the birthday death disease, because one of them did seem to be like all like molted or like hit by the strains of the 6th layer or something like that. That's what it looks like. But as soon as Kiyu was brought to the caravan fleet, a group of boats that travel around Orth transferring goods from West Beluska, and most notably leading with the medical ship that Kiyu was brought to, all the symptoms disappeared as soon as he got there. As soon as he was there, he was fine. Instantly, to the point Mio, the doctor, said that she couldn't even believe he had a fever to begin with. This causes Mio to think of the Abyss and its curse tied to the birthday death disease. It is still a mystery though, even after the new chapters. We do have a little bit more information to attach to theories involving the curse and the birthday death disease, but that's all we can do is speculate right now. We don't have any concrete information. We don't have any concrete stepping stones or anything like that. Okay, relevant information for entry number 3. Riko and Lyza are inside Reg, and we need to go over Ozen, the Unmovable Sovereign. So Ozen is a legendary white whistle whose title, much like all the others, are given in relation to personal strengths and achievements they made throughout the Abyss. Ozen's strength and overall presence as a white whistle has stayed unrivaled for over 50 years and was given the title the Unmovable Sovereign in return. Now, we do not know who Ozen's white whistle is, and if you don't get that, don't worry, we're gonna talk about it a little bit further down, don't worry. But it is shaped in a bull skull, in the shape of a bull skull, further signifying Ozen's and her person's value for strength. Her attitude and body have been twisted by the Abyss. Though incredibly tall, her body sometimes hunches, especially when talking to children, and has to be snapped back to return to her towering figure. Now, Ozen is a blunt and cruel individual. Her apathy towards Reg and Riko, even when she hurts them, is astounding. We can infer that she was always somewhat like this, as we've seen attitudes and personalities are almost heightened when the Abyss is integrated into daily life. Her hair is formed in a way to cover her scars that the Abyss has caused over the years of her delving in it. When told to an adolescent Lyza begging to be mentored under Ozen, she would have hoped for that to scare any other child away. But this would kindle a relationship that would grow larger than the Abyss itself. And it would be that very spark that would seal their fates together. They quickly grew very close to each other, and Lyza would achieve the rank of White Whistle. Things would go good for a while. Ozen and her would laugh and poke fun at each other, travel down to the Abyss's most beautiful sights, and Lyza would even seek revenge on those who hurt Ozen, sharing moments they would never forget. And then, the expedition. What would be a 10-month-long expedition straight to hell. Ozen and Lyza would gather a team of cave raiders to venture down into the depths of the 4th layer, as intel had spread to them, but not just them, to other countries, of a special grade relic down in the Abyss. And now everyone was in a battle to retrieve it. The Unheard Bell, a relic capable of stopping time in an area in relation to the volume of the sound produced, while the amount of time is determined by the reverberations, all of which are noticed only by the user. Just one person with such a relic could obtain immense power. Everyone was fighting for this relic, fighting for survival. And as everyone was busy staying alive, the Abyss would counterattack. Most of Ozen and Lyza's crew would die during the search. And to top it all off, Lyza would give birth to a stillborn Riko. Ozen, disapproving of Lyza's choices, would throw Riko into the curse wording box, seeing her as an annoyance, making plans to bring the bell and Lyza up, and then crying. Riko's crying. Lyza says to take Riko in the box instead of the bell. Even after all of this mess, Ozen reluctantly carries the box with Lyza to the surface. And after which, Riko lives a safe and healthy life. Ozen would go down to the depths of the 2nd layer's inverted forest and take up leadership of Secret Camp and her very own band of cave raiders, the Subterranean Bandits, where she now waits for Riko and Reg to send them off deeper into the Abyss. So, entry 3. Riko and Lyza are inside Reg. So this theory has some really cool implications. With Lyza being inside Reg, it could also be the reason he remembered how to fight after turning into Dark Reg. This could also be relevant to the newer theory that I've been hearing of Reg being sent up to use his incinerator on Riko. If his incinerator really does collect souls as well, and Riko's body has a different soul inside of it, it would make sense if Reg had Riko's true soul and needed both at the bottom with Lyza's body, and Lyza would be there because a human can't enter alive through the 7th layer. Also, the fact that Reg is holding on to the blue pendant as he's ascending. This has recently been coming up in the fandom as I got a comment on my past video, and I watched Fright Ranker's video on his crackpot theories, and thought that the idea of this pendant being Lyza's eye or some other part of her body is actually really cool. One last thing to note, in Volume 6, Chapter 42.6, Ozen remarks on how Reg moves and speaks very similarly to how Lyza used to, and that there was apparently no corpse found by Ozen when digging up Lyza's grave in the 4th layer. And so Ozen, knowing Lyza the most, assumes her alive still. And I would agree with her, but perhaps Ozen knows more than she's letting on. You see, in the same chapter, Giro comes and pays a visit to Ozen with bribes of peculiar food things in jars. I guess she likes that stuff. He's bribing her for maybe like information, because Hablog in the newer chapters talks to Giro about everything he knows about the Haryamara collection. But then Ozen states to, quote, prepare 2 of mine, end quote, to Maruk. Now, this could just be bounced off as like the alcoholic drinks that she was referring to a few panels before, but this page is directly before the death of the twins Shirumi and Mine. They also questioned if Ozen is coming to save them, possibly hinting at the larger picture that Ozen and maybe all White Whistles are aware of something that they're not letting on to the public. We could sit here and speculate all day, but I have a feeling Ozen knows more than she's letting on for sure. She also knew about Reg's memories and was disappointed that not all of them came back, or that he didn't remember a specific one. Relevant information. Entry 4. Another soul entered Riko. The first massive bombshell of the series, the curse-repelling box is a unique relic not classified in the relic guidebook. Those inside of it were once believed to be exempted from the curse completely, but as Ozen would find out by placing Riko's stillborn corpse in the box, that isn't entirely the case. Surprised to later find that Riko had started to make noises, seemingly brought back from the throes of the dead, the organism in the box is indeed still affected by the curse, fatally even in the deeper layers, but what is inside is brought back to life seemingly without harm, and will have a natural drive for the center of the abyss, only to perish not long after. The only exception so far is Riko, but this could change in a moment's notice. Entry 4, another soul entered Riko. This theory I think might not be too far away from the truth in my opinion. We know for a fact that souls are a thing that's been confirmed to us over and over, and we know that children are rather important in the abyss. If wishes are in the same boat as this, then we could assume that a child's soul and desires are the purest form, and only those can truly be granted in its fullest. As we've seen with Arumari, where she was way too complex and she had way too much going on with her personally in her personal life for that to even be considered not complex. This theory is based around the fact that Lyza had Riko inside the abyss, and when Riko was brought up using the curse-repelling box, that she wasn't really brought back like herself, but that a different soul entirely went and entered Riko. And this actually has a little bit of basis, especially with Fapida exclaiming that Riko's soul is different and that she doesn't know where it could have come from. Now, let's sit here and think about relics. And an ancient civilization built these because they thought it was purposeful. What do we do with tools? We make them more and more and more effective. So let's look at something like the curse-repelling vessel. We could see this as a prototype to say something like Zoaholic, where instead of souls being swapped, it's minds or the conscience, or, you know, vice versa, where whatever it would be for the prototype. Riko has the calling to be connected with her original soul, and that's why she has the need to go down to the bottom. It's also strange that Riko is in possession of a rare-shaped whistle, as seen in the newer chapters. Everything about her is different, and none of her origins so far is particularly good. And everything that has happened so far is kind of just by the grace of whatever God is watching over her. Alright guys, so this is gonna be a big one. Relevant information for entry number 5, Nanachi saved Maiden Abyss. So obviously we need to go over who Nanachi is, and she is one of the main characters later introduced to the series within the depths of the 4th layer. So this is gonna be kind of long. If you know Nanachi, skip ahead, I won't get offended. Nanachi is a poor orphan child who would rather take a home somewhere in the abyss than the place that she was given of her home country of Sireni. Nanachi was an abandoned child in every sense of the word. She was dirty, so she stunk, and kids, of course, would pick on her for this. This group of orphan children that are persuaded by Bondrewd's words and follow him back to Edofront. He used these children in hopes of advancing the knowledge of the abyss and its cycle, and seeing as no one would miss them, he seized on the opportunity. As Bondrewd's experiments continued, the kids slowly dwindled. Midi and Nanachi start to grow closer with each night passing, learning more and more about each other in the abyss, until one night, ending like all the others, Midi is called on by Bondrewd. The rustling, stirring Nanachi awake, she runs to the door asking him to take her as well. Filled with excitement to go out already, she calls Bondrewd to take her alongside Midi, and he merely tells her to be patient. Well, Nanachi is not patient, and hesitant to be alone, and bored, follows the heavy footsteps down the hallway, and stops when talking is heard, and it's Bondrewd, being lamented for taking orphan children from overseas countries, that cave raiders are one thing, but children. Bondrewd merely replies confidently that he invited Black Whistles down to the depths 5th layer for this very reason, but that if using human beings was his problem, then he need not be worried, as he is not making use of these children as human beings. Hearing this, though, Nanachi dashes as fast as she can to find Midi, and she finds her locked in a glass tube. Confused and scared, why is Midi here, and how? Bondrewd plays coy, and explains the process of this experiment that they find themselves in. This elevator that Midi is in is a special relic of sorts. able to force the curse to one of two sides. The side Midi finds herself in is the curse side, while Nanachi gets put in the clear. Confused, scared, and angry, they practically scream at Bondrewd, calling him a liar. Bondrewd responds that he has no intentions of lying. He never has. They will indeed be the key to advance the progress within the Abyss as cave raiders, and to hold on for Nanachi's sake. And they're dropped. Down to the cusp of the 6th layer. Nanachi thinking inside, screaming to herself how she has finally found her Haku, her treasure. Midi slowly turns to Nanachi as the sounds of the hollow children slapping their hands against the glass tubes surround them. And she opens to Nanachi one last time that if her human form is destroyed, in the process, to let her soul return to Nanachi. And they're violently shot back up. Nanachi screams, curled up and wanting Midi to just be okay. As violent as the ascent up is for Midi, it's doubled for Nanachi, having to endure this and watch her beloved slowly transform into this malformed mass of tissue that was once her body. And Nanachi, being on the curse-free side, had been transformed still, growing fluffy, nice-smelling fur all over her body, whiskers, paws, a tail, and a new ability to sense consciousness around her, and in turn, the curse. Bondrewd dubbed this transformation the blessing. Obviously depressed and scared from her experience in the elevator, Nanachi spends her days bound to Bondrewd, drawing pictures of Midi while stuck, helping him perform his twisted experiments. And one day, Bondrewd pulls Nanachi to the side and explains as they walk through a corridor to another room that the type of curse that was forced upon Midi is unique, and that not only did she lose her humanity, but she's immortal. Unable to find true peace in this life, Midi is forced to constantly be revived, as Bondrewd has already torn her bottom half away from her 9 times. The torment is too much. Nanachi grabs Midi, leaves Ito front with the hopes of one day bringing peace to Midi, making a home in the depths' 4th layer, a hideout away from the force field that carries the curse. Reg and Riko then cross paths with Nanachi and Midi, and with their help, are able to set Midi free and give Nanachi the chance to meet her once again at the end of their journey. Entry 5. Nanachi saved Maiden Abyss. So this is a reference to the rumor, I guess, about the character Nanachi and just how widely popular they are. So we know that the start of the series is a pretty slow one. And apparently everybody else agreed, because Sakushi was strongly advised to push the plot of the 3rd layer forward. As the manga was losing what little traction it did seem to catch with readers. Nanachi being the first actual intelligent life form we see, and coming from the depths of the 6th layer, which is seemingly impossible, makes for a super intriguing character. And also tied into the development we get with one of, if not arguably the coolest legendary white whistles, Bondrewd. And in an interview, Sakushi just then quitting his stable job for his dream of mangaka and seeing his hard work basically crumbling, put all of his emotion into the work of Nanachi's arc, and Midi being her treasure is said to be a metaphor for Sakushi's dream of being a mangaka, brutally being torn away right in front of him, chapter by chapter. And yeah, I mean, the chapter with Nanachi came out and readers pretty much dove right back in more enthusiastically than ever. Okay guys, we're down to the very last entry for layer 2. Entry 6. The Compass's True Purpose. The Star Compass. Possibly the most important relic in the Abyss. Sakushi has said that this thing is extremely important, but recently I was rewatching the series once again and paid attention to the Abyssal symbol and the symbols that are used in netherglyphs and stuff like that. Now, what's weird is that Wazukan has this symbol on his cape, pinning it by his neck, and the more I started looking, the more I realized how strange this symbol really is. We see this symbol as early as episode 1 in the anime, when Kiyu is asked to drop his book of abyssal creatures and artifacts on the ground to help Riko and Nat bring Reg into the orphanage. Now, it's interesting because different iterations of this symbol is used throughout the series, and each is almost unique in that sometimes there is an inner circle within the bigger one, and sometimes the circle takes up the entirety of the crescent moon's hugging side. Even when Ganja Squad first arrive on the Abyss, the old man shows them old nether glyphs, and within the page is a crescent shape surrounding what looks to be the star compass itself. The old man even calling it a piece of the essential part. Another crucial version of this symbol can be found on the bag Riko gang created to head off into the 5th layer. This one, while maintaining the inner circle within the crescent moon, has a keyhole. Now, this symbol is Netherworld glyph for the Abyss or Netherworld, and clearly it's a part of something, as the inner circles and the keyhole never get brought up, let alone explained. That's where this theory comes in, that the star compass is a literal key or part of a locking mechanism to open the 7th layer threshold or the 8th layer's threshold. Maybe even possibly to carry your own soul within. I mean, anything is possible, man. But Lyza's white whistle having a keyhole and this symbol, I think it's super important. Doni's mask containing keyholes to make a face, and all the mystery behind the 7th layer's fairy tale lore and the pivotal ring. Dude, we're like so close to figuring out. We have like just enough pieces, but I'm so excited for the new chapter, and as soon as this thing comes out, I'm hopping on, I'm gonna write something, and I'm gonna get something ready for you guys because I'm so hyped right now. But thank you for sticking with me. I know it's been a super long time. You know, I'm really having fun getting back in it, and I really miss making these. So it's gonna get crazy, and I cannot wait to get down to the last layer because those theories are so freaking awesome. I love them a lot. I really do. But thank you again, and I'll see you next time.